how come we can't find any books like this, which is like a military thriller,
Sure.
that features Canadian military units, because they're mostly written by American authors,
Right.
and they will include the British, they'll include other NATO allies and stuff, but Canada is almost never mentioned.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
This video is brought to you by Ice Warrior Tactical, Carcajou Tactical, and Grey Fox Strategic. For 10% off your next purchase with Grey Fox Strategic or Carcajou Tactical, use code DA10.
While you're doing this job, where did you find your love or your passion for writing? Were you already kind of writing at that point? And when you know we can probably talk about that now as an author. Maybe just share your I guess gateway to becoming an author. How did that unfold for you?
Yeah, so very unlikely, I guess, sort of way. So I had to start doing some professional writing as part of doing a master's, because you have to write either a thesis or a major research project and that kind of thing. And as I mentioned, that's where you go from your undergrad level of writing to writing. Right?
Right.
And then so there was that. But my journey as an author started back when I was 17 in the artillery. So
Okay.
I was an immature 17-year-old soldier.
Okay.
17-year-old soldiers are immature. I was immature by that standard, right? So that just kind of tells you. So I got in a lot of shit, and I always found myself, somewhere I wasn't supposed to be. And on one particular punishment, I was assigned to provide sentry for an MLVW and do nothing. Right. Not allowed to fall asleep, because if that happens, though, then you're in a whole world of hurt.
It's gonna get worse. Yeah.
Try not falling asleep. When you're on a long field X and you have nothing to do, right?
Yeah.
Oh God, that was awful. But it just so happened that there was a Tom Clancy book, an old one that had the shit kicked out of it, lying there, and so I grabbed it. I had no idea who this guy was, or what it was. So the book was Red Storm Rising, and it was one of his earlier books that he wrote about. Here's what a World War III, it's all fiction, but this is World War III and all that stuff. I loved that book. I burned through that book, and it was like, I don't know, over 1,000 pages. I must have burned through it in 2 days.
Right on.
And I was like, wow. But then I was like, how come we can't find any books like this, which is like a military thriller, that features Canadian military units? Because they're mostly written by American authors, and they will include the British, they'll include other NATO allies and stuff, but Canada is almost never mentioned.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? What's your just raw opinion on why you think that is?
I think because now we're opening up a massive can of worms, right? But it's a complicated answer. But I think first and foremost, Canada doesn't take itself seriously as a country in that way, as a country with a military that matters, and it does matter, and we do have one.
Yes,
but our population doesn't like to necessarily think about it that way, and our politicians in particular don't see it that way.
Yep.
And so we don't really talk a lot about ourselves writ large. The public doesn't know about us. There's very little interest, and if there's no interest in us at home, why would there be from Americans, right?
For sure.
They're writing it, I think. Now, so I could go for hours about that, but I'll just say that as a country, Canada, I think, is still very much an adolescent in the sense that we define our national identity in spite of our neighbors to the south, as opposed to something that we just wish to be on our own without having to constantly compare ourselves to somebody else, right?
Agreed.
And so that is just a small statement that leads into a very big thing. But so back to that, like, it's almost never mentioned. There was a few notable exceptions. So Jack Carr, in one of his books in the Terminal List series, talks about, because they were getting into a sniping scene, and they talked about how the best in the world were Canadians.
Right.
And that, JTF2 holds the record and all this kind of stuff. And so there was some notable mention there. The only other situation I found was in a book where the HMCS Ottawa got sunk in the Arctic, and it was just like a pawn in a bigger sort of geopolitical conspiracy. But otherwise, it's very silent on that. And the thing is, like, why would we expect American authors or any other author to write about our stuff if we're not doing it?
Right.
And so when I looked at it, there was just nothing there. And I had wanted to do this for years and years and years. And I just never got around to it. Every writer sort of, wants to write and then just doesn't. I mean, that's, and it's just a thing. Nobody ever gets to it. And for reasons that are beyond my comprehension, I decided right in the middle of law school. So at the beginning of my second year, so fall of last year, I decided I was going to start writing a book then. And that was a really dumb idea.